let's go over the answers to this review. Okay, so if you can understand this, you should be able to do very well on the quiz on this topic. So let's go through these answers. Okay, so we need to identify the special segment of each triangle. We're looking at this. It goes from a vertex to the opposite side, and it's a 90-degree angle. That is our definition of an altitude. Okay. Here, it goes from the vertex to the opposite side, and we see that it is at the midpoint and perpendicular. So lots of names for this. It's an altitude, just like over here. Okay, but it's also a median. Okay, because it bisects the opposite side at its midpoint. And then it's also a perpendicular. So perpendicular bisector. So all three names. Okay. Here, not going through the vertex, so this is only a perpendicular bisector. Okay. This one here, we're just bisecting the angle, so it's an angle bisector. Okay. And then number 12, here's the vertex to the opposite side, the line that contains the opposite side, it's an altitude. Okay. And then the last one here, from a vertex to the midpoint, we see that we divide this into two congruent parts. So that is our definition of a median. Okay, hopefully that's real easy for you to be able to recognize. Okay, so then here I want you to be somewhat precise, where I'm going to use my protractor, the ruler on my protractor, and I'm going to see that this is about 8 centimeters and 4 millimeters, so really 84. And so I'm going to take half of 84, which is 42. So I'm going to mark it right about there. I'm going to say that's my midpoint. Okay, and so what I need is a perpendicular bisector. So I am going to force, I'm going to line this up like this. And I know from through here, this has to be perpendicular. So I'm just going to connect those like so. This is going to be a 90 degrees, and this piece has to be congruent to this piece. That is what a perpendicular bisector does. Cuts this segment in half at a 90-degree angle. Okay, pretty easy. The next one, we're going to draw an altitude from D to EF. So I need to extend EF. So I'm going to take my protractor, line up the side, and I'm going to just extend that side. So that way I can drop a perpendicular. So I'm going to line up my segment right here. So as long as this part's lined up with this part right here, I know it's going to be a 90-degree angle. And I'm going to mark it 90 degrees. That is the altitude from D to EF. Okay. I need a median from vertex F to DE. So once again, I'll see how long DE is. And once again, it looks like it's about 84 millimeters. So I'll mark it at 4 centimeters and 2 millimeters. So 42 millimeters right about there. And then I'm just going to go from my vertex F to the midpoint. And I'm just going to mark, let someone know, hey, I cut that segment in half into two congruent parts. That is what a median does. Okay. This next part, this is all about the centroid. where the smaller piece, we think of this as x, the longer piece is twice that, okay? Or the longer piece is 2/3 the entire median, okay? So that's what you need to keep in mind. So I'm going to start off by telling you that PB, so this whole thing is 27. I want PO. I know PO is 2/3, so it's 2/3 times 27. Now, you don't need a calculator for this, but I'm hoping 3 goes into 27 9 times. 2 times 9 is 18. But if you're going to use a calculator, make sure your fraction is in parentheses. So that's how I do 2/3 times 27, and it tells me 18. Okay. So then the next one, OA, so this longer piece is going to be 14, which forces the smaller piece to be half that. So it's half of 14, which is 7. Okay. For BO, so BO is going to be 5, and I could label it here. And then PB, so the entire length is going to be, if you understand that this is 5, that forces P to O to be double that, which is 10, which is going to make the entire length 15. Okay, so it's really the 5 plus 2 times 5. Okay, that's how I got the 15. TO, so T to O, my longer piece is 16. I want the entire piece, so I have to know that this has to be an 8, half of the 16. 8 plus 16, that's going to give us 24. Okay, again, that's the thought process that you have to go through when you're dealing with a centroid. Okay, so then the last problem, I tell you, RO. So R to O, the smaller piece is 3. I need just OA, it's going to be double 3. So I just need a 6. Okay. If they asked me for AR, that would have been a 9. But again, make sure you answer what they're asking. Okay. So that should be an easy part of your next quiz. Then we get into some of these problems that we practiced in our notes at 1 to 17. So when you read the description, it is very important that you're willing to make marks, okay? So the second that I see that we're dealing with a perpendicular bisector, I tell you, DH is a perpendicular bisector, I know it's a 90-degree angle. And I also know that ED must be the same as DG because it bisects that segment, okay? So once I see that, then I know ED, this right here, the 7x plus 10, that has to equal DG or GD, and that's going to be 9x minus 2. Okay, so that's the setup. These should be very easy to solve these equations. So if we have it correctly set up, it should take a couple seconds for you to get the x's together. I like keeping my x's positive, so I'm going to subtract this 7x, which will give me 2x, and I'm going to add a 2 to the 10, and I'm going to get 12. I'm going to divide by 2, and I'm going to know that x is 6, okay? And if x is 6, I should be able to then just prove, if I wanted to, I can plug in a 6 here. 7 times 6 is 42. 42 plus 10 is 52. And then if I plugged it in here, 9 times 6 is going to be 56. Take away 2 is also 54. Okay, now I'm not asking for those segments for this problem, but it's a good idea to just double check your work. Okay, so then the next part to be able to solve for y, we're going to use the fact that we know that angle HDG is a 90-degree angle. So I'm going to replace this with a 90-degree angle. And again, this should not cause us any problems to solve. So subtract the 2, you get 88. You divide by 4, and your y is going to be 22. Okay, and it's real easy to check. You plug in 22, 4 times 22 plus 2 is 90. It does check it, makes your equation true. Okay, So then I have another problem where I have a centroid. I'm going to give you certain pieces. So once we do one, just make sure you erase it and stuff. So once you look at the fact that I'm telling you CO, so the longer piece is 6, I1OF, I'm going to need to know that this is 3, 3 plus 6, I'm going to get a 9. Sorry, I misread that. OC is 6, so I just need a 3. Okay, I wanted to tell the whole length, which would have been FC. They're telling me I just need OF. So again, it's very important that we answer the question that's being asked. Okay, so just a 3 there. The next one, I tell you AD. So this big, huge piece right here is 12. I want to know the longer piece. Well, we should know this longer piece is 2/3 of 12. Okay. And again, I can do that math in my head. I know 3 goes into 12 4 times, 2 times 4 is 8, but you can certainly ask the calculator. Okay. So we know the longer piece is an 8. That forces the shorter piece, the OD, to be 4. Together, they add up to the total, which is 12. Okay. BF. So now we're told this side. So we're told BF is 4. So I'm going to label that 4. And then I'm asking for AF. And you just have to know that these are medians. Okay. So it goes from a vertex to the midpoint. That's an easy question to answer. AF must also be 4. Okay. So understand what we're looking at. We're looking at medians when I tell you that we're given a centroid. Okay. OE. So OE, this smaller piece is 5. I want BO, so I just need a double 5. Okay. I need a 10. If they asked you for BE, it would be a 15. Okay. So again, make sure you're answering the questions. Okay. And then we come to this next sheet, more of the same, where I am told that DE is a perpendicular bisector. So it's your job to know 90-degree angle, because perpendicular, bisect, cuts it in half, and then I can answer questions. So the first question based on this up here, I know EDC is 90 degrees. And it's going to take me a couple seconds to take 90 minus 12, which is going to be 78. And then that's equal to y. And then I just have to take half of 78, which is going to be 39. Y is 39. And that's all they're asking. Again, it's really easy to check on a calculator, though, that 2 times 39 plus 12 is 90. So just double check for any mistakes. And then the fact that AD is a 2x plus 6, and then they tell you DC, we know they have to be equal to each other. Okay, so all we're doing is going to solve for x. Again, I like to keep my x's positive, so I'm going to subtract 2x on both sides, and I'm going to add 42. So when I take 6 plus 42, I get 48. Last move is to divide by 2, and we get 24. Okay, so I'm trusting the algebra is easy for you. Okay, so then the next diagram, we're told that WP is a median. Okay, so we don't know anything about this angle. We don't know the angles, but we do know HP has to be congruent to PA. Okay, and then we're also told that it bisects the angle. So this angle is congruent to this angle. Okay, so it's not only a median, but it also bisects the angle. So what we need to realize is I tell you HWP, so that's the smaller piece, is 2x minus 3. And I tell you that the bigger piece, the HWA, the entire angle, okay, really angle this W of this big triangle, is going to be a 6x minus 26. So what we need to realize is if this is 2x minus 3, that forces this to be 2x minus 3. So I can just double this. I have to double this. If I double these or add these together, it should equal my big angle. And that's all we're solving for. So technically, we didn't even need to know about these segments, that being a midpoint. All we had to worry about was the angle. So I'm going to distribute 4x minus 6, 6x minus 26. I'm going to, once again, keep my x's positive. So my 4x, I'm going to subtract it. It'll become a 2x. I'm going to add a 26, so I'm going to be left with 20. And the last move is to divide, take half of 20, which makes x a nice 10. Okay, so make sure you understand here, we're just talking about angles, nothing to do with the segments. Okay, this next problem, no, it's hard to see the dots, so we're just going to try to do our best to plot these 3 points. So 1, 2, 3. So it's 3 and up 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That is my U. Okay. V is 1 down 1, 2, 3. So here is V. And then finally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down 1. And that's going to be W. Okay. So I want to be somewhat precise. So I'm going to use a straight edge to make a triangle. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to find the midpoint of each of these. Okay. So we're supposed to actually draw and show our centroid. So what we're going to do is we can find the midpoint of each side. So let's start with UV. Okay, from U to V, all you have to do, and you hopefully do this in your head, U to V, I add my x's. So 3 plus 1 is 4, half of 4 is 2. I add my y's. So again, just be careful with negatives. 7 plus negative 3 is 4, half of 4 is 2. And here's how you know if you did it correctly. When I plot 2, 2, it better be the midpoint of UV. So when I go over 2, up 2, I can feel good about that dot. Okay, it looks like it's halfway between. That's what a midpoint does. So then we need to do U to W. So U to W, this piece right here, just keep yourself organized. 3 plus 5 is 8. Half of 8 is a 4. Okay. Then I add my y's. A 7 and negative 1 add together is a 6. Half of 6 is 3. And when we plot this, let's make sure it's halfway in between. 1, 2, 3, 4 up, 1, 2, 3. That looks pretty good. Looks like it's halfway between. And then finally, we just need to know the midpoint here, and then we'll just draw some lines and hopefully see the centroid. Okay, so from V to W, I'm looking at V to W. 1 plus 5 is 6. Half of 6 is a 3. Here, when you add negatives, it stays negative, and it's negative 4. So negative 3 plus negative 1 is negative 4. Half of negative 4 is negative 2. So let's plot that. 1, 2, 3, down 1, 2. Hey, I feel very good about that. So now all we need to do is draw the medians. Okay, so from the vertex to the opposite side, the midpoint, which I already graphed the midpoints of each. That was not that great. Hey, let's make it a little bit nicer. There you go. And then from V here, that looks good. So it kind of looks like it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 1, but let's draw this third median, and you're going to see that it does pass through. The point we're sharing is 1, 2, 3, up 1. That's what we're doing. Okay, so I'll make sure it works out nice and neatly, but those are the steps that you have to do, and I will give you a protractor as a straight edge. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense to everybody. And we have one last page, and then this last page is just, again, going by the description. So once again, I see that we have a perpendicular bisector. So this line is a perpendicular bisector. So I'm going to mark the angle 90 degrees, and I'm going to say that AD is congruent to DC. Okay. So the good news is they tell us AD is y plus 8, and they tell us C or DC or CD, same thing, it's 2y minus 15. That looks very easy to solve. Subtract the y, make this a y on this side, add the 7, and you're going to have 15. Okay. Now, notice over here, I do ask for the actual length of the segments. So AD is 15 plus 8, which is 23. So I know this has to be 23 units. When I plug it in here, it better be also 23, but it's 30 minus 7, which is 23. We knew they had to be the same. And therefore, if you add those two segments together, you get the total AC, which is going to be 46. Okay, so make sure you answer that question. And we still need to be able to find X, and X is based on knowing that EDC, the angle, is 90 degrees. So 90 equals X plus 23. That looks very easy to solve because it takes one move, subtract 23, and get 67. Okay, that's all we're asking for. The next one, I'm told that it's a median. I'm telling you that TA is a median. All I can mark, I can't mark the angle, but I can mark that EA or EA, AE, doesn't matter, is congruent to AR or RA. And once again, they tell us those two pieces. So all we're going to do is set them equal to each other. 2x minus 8 equals 3x minus 15. I like keeping my x's positive, so I'm going to subtract 2x. I'm going to get an x. I'm going to add 15. And again, if you need a calculator, negative 8 plus 15 is just a 7. Okay. And once I know that X is 7, I know that AE, so AE is going to be 2 times 7 minus 8, which is a 6. Okay. And then AR better be a 6, but I'm just going to double check. I'm going to plug in a 7 here. 3 times 7 is 21. Take away 15. Hey, that's 6. And then E all the way to R is just add these together. So ER has to be 12 units. Okay. Super easy. I am hoping that is super easy. Okay. So now this problem right here, this goes back to something we talked about in 6.1, where we know that this is a segment, a perpendicular bisector of this segment. Okay, because we're told from any, like a point here to the endpoints, we're told that these are congruent. So since we're shown that these are congruent and we have a 90-degree angle, we know these have to be. So all you're going to do is write 2x plus 1 equals 4x minus 7. Basically using the converse of a perpendicular bisector. So once we solve this, all you're going to get is a 2x on this side. If I subtract, I add the 7, I get 8. I take half of 8. We're going to see that x is 4. And I'm asking for CD. So I want to know this whole thing. And if I plug in a 4 here, I'm going to get a 9. 4 times 4 is 16. Take away 7 will be also a 9. So 9 plus 9. CD has to equal 18. 9 plus 9, 18. Okay. So then another concept in 6.1, we're going to know based on this. Okay. So we cut an angle, it looks like it's in the middle, but I know it's actually a bisector because from a point to The one side of the angle is a perpendicular, so it's the distance. This distance equals this distance, therefore that it is a angle bisector. So since these two angles must be the same, all we're going to do is take the one angle, x plus 4, set it equal to the other angle, 3x minus 10. Once again, it's pretty easy to solve. You're going to get x is 7, okay? And if x is 7, we can plug in a 7. What you're going to see is you get 11. So the overall angle, and I don't know if I asked this, but let's find the, so we are asking for ACP. So this, find the measure of ACP. We're just going to realize that is 11 degrees. And then therefore ACB, the bigger angle, has to be double. It's 11 plus 11, which is 22 degrees, okay? And we know that by setting these two things equal to each other because it is an angle bisector, okay? That's all stuff you learned in 6-1, okay? And then the last thing is another review of what we did in 6-1. I have another video that takes you through the steps. It's a 4-step process. So let's go through the 4-step process. If you want to actually graph these points for a visual, you can put these points on a graph paper and verify it visually that we're going to be correct. So the first thing is I want to find the equation of a perpendicular bisector. So y equals mx plus b. So write an equation in the form y equals mx plus b. The first step, though, is we must find the midpoint. Okay, to be able to bisect the segment, I need to know the midpoint. So the midpoint for this is -3 plus 11. You're going to get an 8. So I'll write that 8 over 2. And then we're going to add the y's. You're going to get a 16. Okay, so 7 plus 9 is 16, and you're going to take half of that for a midpoint of 4.8. So we need to get that step correct. So again, if you wanted to see a visual, plot -3, 7, 11, up 9, and then plot the midpoint, it better be smack dab in the middle, and it is. Okay. The next step is to find the slope of this segment. Okay, so that's very important that we can understand. We have a formula for slope. It says take the y values. I'm going to start with the 7. I'm going to just take this y minus this. Then underneath, I must subtract the x's starting with -3. Since I started with a 7, I must start with -3. And it's going to be -3 minus 11. So again, if you need a calculator, I don't want you to get this calculation wrong. 7 minus 9 is -2. -3 minus 11 is -14. This becomes positive, and if you reduce it, it's 1/7. Okay, again, if you would plot those points, you're going to see if you connect the two endpoints, it's going uphill left to right. So that is a positive slope. So then third step is to do the opposite reciprocal. Okay, it's very important that we can see that this is a positive slope. That means I need a negative slope. It's a 1/7. I need to make it 7/1 or simply a -7. That is the opposite reciprocal of 1/7. Okay, and my fourth and final step is to plug everything into y equals mx plus b. So I'm going to take my y value of my midpoint, which is 8. I'm going to take this -7, and I'm replacing the x with a 4, and we'll easily be able to solve for b. Okay, so that's 8. -7 times 4 is going to be -28 plus b. I'm going to add 28 to both sides. And when you do that, you're going to see that the y-intercept is way up at 36. So putting everything together to answer this question, the perpendicular bisector, the equation for the perpendicular bisector would be y equals -7x plus 36. make sure you understand that. Okay. It's a lot of math. So this is definitely a problem that can definitely illustrate your current algebra and geometry skills. Okay. So I love this type of problem. I know if you stay focused, you can do it. Okay. So that review took 30 minutes to be able to explain all the questions. So again, ask me for help. If there's something you're not sure about, please ask. Go back and look at problems in our notes and stuff to be ready for this quiz. Okay. Thank you for watching. Take care.